Hansel and Gretel. In a remote forest lived a poor woodcutter with his wife and 2 children. The boy's name was Hansel and the girl's was Gretel. They had little to eat and very little to break. One day, when great scarcity fell upon the land, they could no longer find enough food to survive. The woodcutter, lying in bed at night, worried about what would become of his family, groaned and asked his wife, "What are we going to do? How are we going to feed our children when we have nothing left for ourselves?" The woman, however, had an idea. She told her husband, "Tomorrow morning we will take our children into the forest, to the thickest part. There we will light a fire and give each child a piece of bread. Then we will leave them there and go back to work. They will not be able to find their way home, and we will be rid of them." The woodcutter was against the idea, saying, "How can I leave my own children in the forest? What if the wild animals come and hurt them?" But the woman insisted, "We have no other choice. We must do what is best for our family." In the end, the woodcutter agreed to the plan. The next morning he took his children to the forest and left them there. They cried and begged him not to leave them, but he was firm. The children were scared and alone, but they knew they had to stay strong. Later that day, the woodcutter returned to the forest to check on them. He was surprised to find that they were still there, safe and sound. The wild animals had not come near them. The family was relieved and grateful that their children had survived. "Tear them to pieces, oh, you fool," she said. Later that day, the woodcutter returned to the forest to check on them. He was surprised to find that they were still there, safe and sound. The wild animals had not come near them. The family was relieved and grateful that their children had survived. "Tear them to pieces, oh, you fool," she said. "Then we must all die of hunger. You may as well plane the planks for our coffins." And she left him no peace until he consented. "But I feel very sorry for the poor children, all the same," said the man. The 2 children had not been able to sleep for hunger, and had heard what their stepmothers said to their father. Gretel wept bitter tears and said to Hansel, "Now all is over for us." "Be quiet, Gretel," said Hansel. "Do not distress yourself. I will soon find a way to help us." And when the old folks fell asleep, he got up, put on his little coat, opened the door below, and crept outside. The moon shone brightly, and the white pebbles, which lay in front of the house, glittered like real silver pennies. Hansel stooped and put as many of them in the little pocket of his coat as he could possibly get. Then he went back and said, "Be comforted, dear little sister. Sleep in peace. God will not forsake us." And he lay down again in his bed. When day dawned, but before the sun had risen, the woman came and woke the 2 children, saying, "Get up, you sluggards. We are going into the forest to fetch wood." She gave each a little piece of bread and said, "There is something for your dinner, but do not eat it up before then, for you will get nothing else." Gretel took the bread under her apron, as Hansel had the stones in his pocket. Then they all set out together on the way to the forest. When they had walked a short distance, Hansel stood still and looked back at the house, and did so again and again. His father said, "Hansel, what are you looking at and staying behind? Mind what you are about, and do not forget how to use your legs." "Oh, father," said Hansel, I'm looking at my little white cat, which is sitting on the roof and wants to say goodbye to me." The wife said, "Fool, that is not your little cat, that is ... The morning sun was shining on the chimneys, but Hansel was not looking back at the cat. Instead, he was constantly throwing one of the white pebbles out of his pocket onto the road. When they reached the middle of the forest, the father said, "No, children, pile up some wood and I will light a fire so you won't be cold." Hansel and Gretel gathered brushwood together as high as a small hill. The brushwood was lit, and when the flames were burning very high, the woman said, "Now, children, lay yourselves down by the fire and rest. We will go into the forest and cut some wood. When we have finished, we will come back and get you." Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire, and when noon came, they ate a little piece of bread. As they heard the strokes of the wood axe, they believed that their father was nearby. It was not, however, the axe. It was a branch which he had fastened to a withered tree, which the wind was blowing back and forth. And as they had been sitting for such a long time, their eyes closed with fatigue, and they fell fast asleep. When they finally awoke, it was already dark night. Gretel began to cry and asked how they were going to get out of the forest. But Hansel comforted her, saying, "Just wait a little while until the moon rises, and then we will find our way." When the full moon rose, Hansel took his little sister's hand and followed the pebbles, which shone like newly minted silver coins, and showed them the way. They walked all night long, and at dawn they came back to their father's house. They knocked on the door, and when the woman opened it, she saw that it was Hansel and Gretel. She said, "You naughty children, why did you sleep so long in the forest? We thought you would never come back." The father, however, rejoiced, for it cut him to the heart to have left them behind. Not long after, there was once again, in a time of great scarcity, the children heard their mother say to their father that they had only half a loaf of bread left. After that, there would be nothing more. The children must go farther into the woods so that they would not find their way back. There was no other way to save themselves. The man's heart was heavy, and he thought it would be best for him to share the last mouthful with his children. However, the woman would not listen to anything he had to say and scolded him. He who says A must say B must do likewise, and as he had given in the first time, he had to give in a second time. The children were still awake and heard the conversation when the old folks were asleep. Hansel got up again and wanted to go outside to pick up pebbles, as he had done before. But the woman had locked the door, and Hansel could not get out. Nevertheless, he comforted his little sister. Sister and I said, "Do not cry, Gretel. Go to sleep quietly. The good God will help us." Early in the morning, a woman came and took the children out of bed. She gave them a piece of bread, but it was smaller than before. On the way to the forest, Hansel crumbled his bread in his pocket. He often stopped and threw a crumb on the ground. "Hansel, why do you stop and look around?" his father asked. "I'm looking back at my little pigeon, which is sitting on the roof and wants to say goodbye to me," Hansel answered. The woman said that it was not his little pigeon. It was the morning sun shining on the chimney. However, little by little, Hansel led the children deeper into the forest. There was a great fire made again. The mother said, "Just sit there, children. When you are tired, you may sleep a little. We are going into the forest to cut wood, and in the evening, when we were done, we would come and take you away. When it was noon, Gretel shared her piece of bread with Hansel, who had scattered his by the way. Then they fell asleep, and evening came and went, but no one came for the poor children. They did not wake up until it was dark, and Hansel comforted his little sister and said, "Just wait, Gretel, until the moon rises, and then we will see the crumbs of bread that I have scattered, and they will show us the way home." When the moon came, they set out, but they found no crumbs, for the many birds that fly about in the woods had picked them all up. Hansel said to Gretel that they would soon find their way, but they did not. They walked the whole night, and the next day too, from morning until evening, but they were still in the forest, and were very hungry, for they had not eaten since morning, nothing to eat but 2 or 3 berries that grew on the ground. As they were so tired their legs could carry them no longer, they lay down under a tree and fell asleep. It had been 3 days since they left their father's house. They began to walk again, but they always got deeper into the forest. If help did not come soon, they would die of hunger and exhaustion. When it was noon, they saw a beautiful snow-white bird sitting on a branch. It sang so delightfully that they stood still and listened to it. When it finished its song, it spread its wings and flew away. They followed it until they reached a small house, on the top of which it landed. When they came closer to the house, they saw that it was made of bread and covered in cakes, with windows made of clear sugar. "Let's go inside and see what we can find," said Hansel. "I'm starving." Hansel reached up and broke off a small piece of the roof to taste it. Gretel leaned against the window and nibbled on the glass. Suddenly a soft voice called out from the room, "Who is nibbling on my little house?" The children answered, "It's just the wind from heaven." They continued eating, undisturbed. Hansel thought the roof tasted delicious, so he tore off a large piece, and Gretel pushed the whole round window pane out. She took them both by the hands and led them to her little house. Then good food was served to them, milk, pancakes with sugar, apples, and nuts. Afterwards 2 pretty little beds were prepared with clean white linen, and Hansel and Gretel lay down in them, thinking they were in paradise. The old woman had only pretended to be evil. So kind she was in reality, a wicked witch who lay in wait for children. She had built the little house of bread only to entice them. When a child fell into her power, she killed it, cooked it, and ate it. That was a feast for her. Witches have red eyes and can't see far, but they have a keen sense of smell like beasts and are alert when human beings draw near. When Hansel and Gretel came to her neighborhood, she laughed maliciously and said mockingly, "I have them. They shall not escape me." Early in the morning, before the children woke up, she was already awake. When she saw them sleeping, she muttered that they would be a delicious meal. Then she seized Hansel with her shriveled hand, carried him to a stable, and shut him inside with a grated door. He could scream as much as he liked, but it was of no use. She went to Gretel, shook her, and made her run away, until she woke up and cried, "Get up, lazy thing! Fetch some water and cook something good for your brother. He is outside in the stable and needs to be fat. When he is fat, I will eat him." Gretel began to weep bitterly, but it was all in vain. She was forced to do what the wicked witch ordered her, And now the best food was cooked for poor Hansel, but Gretel got nothing but crab shells every morning. The woman crept to the little stable and cried, "Hansel, stretch out your finger so that I can feel if you will soon be fat." Hansel, however, stretched out a small bone to her, and the old woman, who had dim eyes, could not see it, and thought it was Hansel's finger. She was astonished that there was no way to fatten him. When 4 weeks had passed, and Hansel was still thin, she was seized with impatience, and would not wait any longer. "Gretel," she cried to the girl, "be active and bring some water. Let Hansel be fat. Tomorrow I will kill and cook him." Oh, how the poor little sister lamented when she had to fetch water, and how her tears flowed down her cheeks. "Dear God, do help us," she cried. "If the wild beasts had devoured us, we should have died together." "Just keep your noise to yourself," said the old woman. "All that won't help me at all." Early in the morning, Gretel had to go out and hang the cauldron with water and light the fire. "We will bake first," said the old woman. "I've already heated the oven and knead the dough." She pushed poor Gretel into the oven, from which flames were already darting and creeping. Said the witch, "See if it's properly heated, so we can shut the bread in." When Gretel was inside, she intended to shut the oven and let her bake in it, and then she would eat her too. But Gretel saw what she had in mind and said, "I don't know how I'm supposed to do this. How do you get out?" The old woman said that the door was big enough, but Gretel just looked and saw that she could get in herself. She crept up and put her head into the oven. Then Gretel pushed her in and shut the door. The witch began to howl, but Gretel ran away, and the witch was burnt to death. Gretel, however, ran to Hansel's house and opened the stable. She cried out, "Hansel, we are saved. The old witch is dead." Hansel jumped out of the stable like a bird when the door was open. They rejoiced and embraced each other, and danced around and kissed each other. As they had no more fear of the witch, they went into her house and found chests full of pearls and jewels. Hansel stuffed his pockets with as many as he could carry, and Gretel filled her apron. "But now," said Hansel, "we must find a way out of the witch's forest." After walking for 2 hours, they came to a large body of water. "There was no footbridge or boat in sight," said Gretel, "but a white duck was swimming nearby. If I ask it, she will help us get across," said Hansel. Then he called out, little duck, please help us cross this water. There's never been a bridge or plank in sight." The duck came to them, and Hansel sat on its back. He told his sister to do the same. Gretel said she was too heavy, but the little duck carried them both across. When they were safely on the other side, the forest seemed more familiar. They saw their father's house in the distance, and began to run. The children rushed into the parlor, and threw themselves into their father's arms. The man had not known a happy hour since he left the children in the forest. The woman, however, was dead. Gretel emptied her apron until pearls and precious stones were scattered about the room. Hansel threw one handful after another out of his pocket to add to the pile. Then all anxiety was at an end, and they lived together in perfect happiness.